the accused, not so?
Yes, in terms of my rank, my lord, I did know that I'm regarded as Justice of the Peace, and yes, as such, I can take confessions and admissions, my lord. That I knew.
Yebo ngangikwazi-ke lokho ukuthi ngokwesikhundla sami-ke ukuthi-ke ngiyangivumela-ke ukuthi uma kuwukuthi-ke uyagonyuluka lokho ngingakuthatha-ke kuyena kanye futhi nama-admissions phecelezi-ke uma ngabe khona akuvumayo ngangazi ukuthi ngesikhundla sami ngivumelekile-ke ukuthi ngingakwenza lokho.
Thank you, Brigadier. Now you're armed with that knowledge. You're armed with that knowledge, but despite that knowledge, Brigadier, you decide to go and have this interview with accused number 1 empty-handed.
No, my lord. I think I've really explained this point with greatest respect over Mnisi over and over again. That I did not know the contents of what was said by accused number 1 to Sergeant Mkhola. Discussion didn't go that far. Admissions or confessions, for one to make a determination of whether these are admissions or confession, you need to know the details. You need to have knowledge of the information. I did not have that. I did not speak to accused number 1 even telephonically. I didn't know how he looked like and what is his state of mind. How do I make preparation when I don't know that, my lord? That is why I felt that as part of my investigation, I will go to him and I will start with the paramount prerequisite of the procedure. That is his constitutional rights. Because if he understands these rights and he still elects to speak freely and voluntarily, that direction will then flow from there. If he says, I understand and I don't want to implicate myself, that is the end. So how do I make preparations when I do not know the person I'm going to meet, what will elect? And I don't know, I didn't have the knowledge, my lord.
Lana ke ngicabanga ukuthi lokho ke ngikushilo ke ngikusho ke futhi nginkuluke inhlonipho ukuthi ke kade ke ngichaza ngikusho ke lokho ukuthi ke okoqala ngangaze ngihlangana naye umsolo wokuqala ngangamazi ke nokuthi ubuke kanjani isimo sakhe ngokwasemqondweni ukuthi sikanjani manje ke kwisimo esikanjalo ngiyilungiselela kanjani ukuthi ke ngiya lapha yana ngiphethe lokho nalokho yebo ngitshela ukuthi kukhona ke akuvumayo noma kushoyo kodwa imininingwane yalokho ngangayitsheliwe so ngangazi ukuthi uma ngifika lapho ke yini azofike ayisho.
And lastly, my lord, that is why it took my engagement with accused number 1 for me to satisfy myself that he was making confessions freely and voluntarily and without any undue influence in sober senses. That only after that did I then activate Colonel Mboto when he said he was willing to make a statement freely and voluntarily to an independent office. With this knowledge now that I just referred to, that is why I was able now to move to the second part of trying to find an officer, because I was equipped with knowledge of what is said to me, what is his state of mind, and his understanding of the rights. I could not make such arrangement prior to that, my lord.
Manje ke yingakho ke lokho ke kwase kungithatha ke manje sekungidlulisela ke kwisigaba esilandelayo ke ngoba manje ke kukhona ke engangisengikwazi engangisengikutsheliwe uyena ke umsolo wakhe kodwa ngaphambilini kwalokho akukho engangingakwenza ngoba akunalutho engangikwazi ikona ke lokho manje kuholele ekuthini ke ngikwazi ke ukuthi ke ngithole elinye iphoyisa noma ngithole omunye ke umuntu ongasiyona ingxenye yophenyo lokho ke kwaholela kuyena uKenel Mboto.
That's my response, my lord.
Brigadier, you may be excused for having not known that when you go and talk to accused number 1, there's something that you needed to take along with you. You may be excused for that. But you start the process of talking to accused number 1, you hear what is it that is going to say. You don't say to number 1, hey, look, me, now this is getting very serious. That information, it's serious. You don't go get into the police station, which was just a few steps away from you, and say, Sbia, wait a minute, in this red Golf, I'm going to get a formal document where I'm going to document whatever that you are going to say to me. You don't do that, not so.
But my lord, the person says to me, in the midst of engaging him, I am prepared to make this confession to an independent police officer. Now I go to the police station to get the form to do what? Because then I'm changing what he just told me. I've said, in terms of the best practice rule, it's advisable that someone independent document this confession. Now, if then I go in subsequent to him alerting me that he's willing to make a confession, a statement rather, to an independent person, free and voluntary, then I take the form and then now he must give me through, and then I'm taking the confession, my lord. It defeats exactly the same principle of getting someone independent, because if I take the form and I document what he's telling me, then I'm taking down the confession, which is what I'm saying. Because of this best practice rule, it is advisable that someone not involved takes the confession. Now I'm being, if the suggestion is that I should have done it, that would have defeated that purpose, because that would have amounted me taking a formal confession from accused number one.
Uqeda ukuthi noma uthi ke kumina ukuthi ngimisele ukuthi ke ngigonyulukeke noma ngisenze le statement lesi ke kumuntu ke oyimele noma ke umuntu ongasiyona ke ingxenye yophenyo kulona ke lecala. Manje mina sengiyahamba ngingena e-police station ngithatha iform ngiyabuya ke ngizobhala phansi lokho akushoyo. Lokho ke manje sekuphikisana ke nalokho aqeda ukusho yena kumina ukuthi uyimisela ukuthi lokho akwenze komunye umuntu. Mina sengithatha i-confession noma sengibhala phansi ke i-statement mina ke noma sibhalwa yimina, manje akusenziwa yilo muntu lo athi yena uyimisele ukuthi akwenze kuyena.
That's my response, my lord.
Thank you, Brigadier. I feel a bit compelled again to give you a bit of a discourse, because you really don't understand these things. And I'm saying this with the greatest respect that I have for you and the South African Police Services. You really don't understand these things. This is how it works. There was nothing on that day that barred you from taking down what accused number one told you. You had all the rights, even if you're a constable, Brigadier, for that matter. Even if you're a constable, there was nothing wrong that barred you from taking down everything that accused person said to you in terms of the form that is prescribed by SAPS. However, because of the fact that you are a protagonist of the best practice rule, then you would have said to accused, look, I know that I've taken down this thing, but because I'm involved in the investigation of this case, I am going to request somebody very neutral to come and talk to you. Are you then prepared to repeat what you have told me that I've written down in this form, which you have signed? Are you prepared to do that? Then accused would say, yes, I'm prepared, or I'm not prepared to do that. So that is just a bit of a discourse. That is how it happens. Even if you're a constable, there was nothing wrong that stopped you from taking down that confession.
My lord,
that is not correct. That is not what the law says.
Yeah, you're right. Constable can't take a confession.
I'm not. Okay, you can answer.
I'm just stating as law that a constable, who is obviously not a commissioned officer and a justice of the peace,
yes,
you can't take a confession.
No, my lord. A constable is well positioned to take down what this accused person says to him. However, then a constable will go to his branch commander and say, branch commander, I have received this information from a constable, from a suspect, which to me amounts to a confession. But because I am a constable, it won't be admitted at court. So can you then please arrange for a commissioned officer to come and retake down what this person told me?
But you're talking to a colonel with about 30 years, 29 years or 25 years of experience.
The principle is still the same, my lord.
Okay, fine.
As I'm saying,
okay, fine. That's not what the law says. You can continue.
That's a misreading. It's a misreading.
No, you can continue. That's not what the law says. Continue.
So,
Brigadier, the law simply says because you're a commissioned officer, there's nothing that stopped you from taking that confession. However, in order to give credibility to the process, because you were involved with the investigation of the case, you would not have been perceived as a neutral person, hence the intervention of Mboto. That is how the process works.
So, my lord,
that is from 1939.
All right, let's start with the last part. The last part is what I've been saying all along, my lord.
Yes, is that so?
What you're saying is what I've been saying.
Okay.
I think we're aligned with the last part of Advocate Mnisi's position, because I've been saying, me as a colonel, my lord, at that time, because I was an officer, I was allowed in terms of the act to take confessions, but because of the best practice to take the position of neutrality and objectivity, you try to get someone neutral so that whatever that is contained in the statement is tested or seen to be objective.
Okay.
There we are aligned. Where we differ is when he says, when I went to interview the suspect or have a discussion with the suspect in the course of my investigation, I should have went with forms prepared. There we differ. I don't think that is correct. Secondly, when he says it is law, I'm not so sure whether I understand Advocate Mnisi correctly to say it is the law prescribed that when you interview a suspect, and that's where you use the constable, that it tells you it's a requirement, and before you activate the independent person, you must document what the person or the suspect is telling you before you activate this independent person. If my understanding is correct, then I disagree with him. That's not how it's done. I completely disagree. You interview, and perhaps let me start with the constable. A constable, my lord, even if he or she documents what the accused is telling him, that document is inadmissible. It's not worth the piece of paper that it's not going to be accepted, because you have to be a commissioned officer, and then as a result, you then have the same right as the magistrate, as being regarded as the justice of the peace. So the constable, it's out when it comes to confessions. But coming back to the issue of whether, when an accused person makes a confession to you, to me in this instance, as a commissioned officer,